Basic Education Department has amended the terms and conditions of re-employment of teachers who are fired for misconduct. The newly published conditions spell out if and when a teacher can be re-employed. For more on this, I'm joined now by the National Professional Teachers Organization of South Africa Executive Director, Basil Emmanuel. Basil, good evening, and thank you very much for joining us tonight on the Newsfeed Late Night. Amendments to the teachers' terms and conditions of employment, preventing the rehiring of educators who've been charged with misconduct. What does this represent in real broad terms?
Good evening, Thabo, and thank you for having me. In broad terms, it is regulating what happens right across the country. Up to now, and the processes haven't changed of getting to find somebody guilty and dismissing them. However, because there was no dictate that said how long you have to stay out before reapplying, what very often did happen is that a teacher would leave one province, go to another, and reapply, and almost immediately get reinstated, even though they would have committed serious offences like sexual offences. Now, that was a gap in the system. And by having this schedule now there, where the different offences are grouped together in terms of seriousness and limiting the period of expulsion, so to speak, it gives a uniform application to it throughout the country. But it also sets certain other standards, because now there must be a register, there must be a way of keeping people out so that every province knows, and that is by and through the salary system. And of course, SACE also comes into play. So we welcome this because it creates uniformity. But it also ensures that somebody who's committed a less serious offense, who has served their time, can be rehabilitated and can come back, because such people can't be kept out of the system forever. I mean, even in the criminal justice system, people serve their time, they're rehabilitated, and they get back into circulation. So there's that part as well that we mustn't forget.
So there are two things that you're raising there. I mean, the first one is the fact that there are offenders who literally move to a different province and they make their way back into the system. Do we know that as a fact? Do we know that anecdotally? Do we know that it really does happen? And if it does, why does it happen? I mean, you talk of, for example, the system being able to keep you out. Why has it not been able to keep those offenders out?
It has to do with administrative efficiency in provinces. So, some provinces are far more efficient than others, and they would have gone through the system of checking. But because there was no dictate that said, if I'm found guilty of a sexual offense, I can't ever come back. There's nothing that said that. There's nothing that prevented a reapplication. It was a weakness in the very law, the EEA, the Employment of Educators Act. Now this seeks to correct that. It's been a long time outstanding, and in fact even ourselves, we've just discussed this more than 5 years ago, and it has only come into being now. No, and it's not anecdotal. In fact, it's on record that we had an individual who had committed a sexual offense against girls, had impregnated some girls, left KZN, went to another province, was re-employed, and was discovered to have done the same there. Now, this happened a few years ago, and it's part of the criminal record system. So to prevent that from happening, you had to have something in place. And we are very happy that it is here. We believe that there are things that we can talk about that are written down here that we are questioning. However, we don't want to limit and draw a cloud over what is essentially a positive step.
Right now, you've got various processes that play out here, and tell me how those are articulated then via this particular amendment. So you've got, for example, if it's a rape, it's an assault of a learner, and so on and so forth, you've got a criminal process that certainly takes place. That will not be brought on by the Department of Basic Education. However, the outcomes thereof can be used by the Department of Basic Education. And when does then the SACE process kick in?
Let me just correct something. Yes, even the Department of Education can charge a person, because maybe the sexual assault was at the school. If it wasn't at school or of school children or even adults at school, then of course it's purely a criminal case. And then the department has written into this that if it's a criminal case, you're found guilty, that too, they will then accept that ruling. But remember, you can have a case with your Department of Education or with SACE or with the criminal justice system. And whoever finds you guilty, the outcome is still the same in terms of the sanction after having been dismissed. Remember, we are not interfering with the system. We are saying after you have been found guilty. Now, SACE has the obligation. If a person has been found guilty, they've got to ensure that the person is deregistered for a certain time, depending on the offense. As in the case of a serious sexual offense, that is for life. And they've got to ensure that that person could never register again. But at the same time, the one very, very good system is Treasury, and the Purcell system is to block the re-entry of that salary number or that ID into the system again. You can't change your ID number. That would be another criminal offense. But once you're blocked, if you tried to come in, and even if the administrative systems were not good in a particular province, once they tried to get your salary released, you would be blocked there, because it would be on the system permanently. So those are the processes. And of course also the police have a role to play, because you would be on the sexual offences register. And we know that the sexual offenders register has not always been as good as we wanted it to be, and access is so difficult to get to. And so people haven't always been able to access it. But if those three agencies all get their act together, this will work well.
So, I mean, you first mentioned that there are those who have benefited from the fact that these rules were not articulated well as to the wait, cool-off, wait-out period, the cut-out period. But also, you're saying there are those who have been prejudiced by this particular system in the sense that there are some provinces who could even make you wait for years for a minor offense.
Let's take, for example, mismanaging the school's money. It's a serious offense. You could be dismissed for it. And if you were dismissed, some provinces were overzealous, kept people out for 10 years. Now it says this is something you can be rehabilitated for. 3 years is now the maximum period for which you can be kept out. However, the employer still has a right to check that you haven't committed a similar offense in that period of time, even in other employ, because that would also militate against returning. But for something like theft, and sometimes it's a small amount, but you can still be dismissed.
But the South African Teachers Union CEO says that doesn't make sense. Why should you get a lesser punishment for bribery or for corruption? Why get a lesser sanction? It doesn't make sense. They should naturally be the same.
But we can't compare a sexual offense with bribery. Bribery is serious, and let me not create the impression that I'm trying to say that it is a lesser offense. No, it is a serious offense. However, you can't compare the two. You can't compare murder to theft. The two are distinctly different, and people have a right to be rehabilitated. Your criminal justice system, people murder and serve 5-10 years and come out and rejoin society. We can't condemn people for life, because our system has to be corrective in its nature, not only punitive. There must be punishment, but it can't only be punitive. And that is the sense that this document brings, and that NAPTOSA supports.
How does this document amplify the work of SACE, particularly in dealing with misconduct in the profession, that it is routinely dealt with and that there is consequence management?
I think it certainly strengthens the hand, particularly because SACE has done a lot. And I know there's criticism at times, but certainly it has charged people, found people guilty. But they too were hamstrung by the fact that a guilty finding didn't always keep a person out, because there was nothing that dictated against the person returning. So this strengthens their hand in that the sanction, or the length of period that the sanction applies, is now very clearly spelled out, from a lifetime to 1 year. And this is, I think, would be warmly welcomed by SACE.
Do you think this goes far enough to deter educators from being sexually involved with learners, be it in a relationship or in any other form? But does it go far enough as well to deter would-be predators?
I certainly hope so. Look, people have known that they could go to jail. They've known that they could lose their jobs, etc. And we've still seen an increase. Now, maybe the increase is because of better reporting. But even one is too many. And I hope that this now, where it has been stated categorically that you won't have a second chance, you won't come back again, will deter. I certainly hope so. And we have broadcast this to our members, and we are saying, please don't find yourself on the wrong side of the law. This is what will happen if you do.
Much appreciated for your time tonight. The Executive Director of NATOSA there, Basil Manuel, outlining, of course, what are these amendments to the terms and conditions of